please.
Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, I have acceded to the bombardment of demands and invited my old friend Deb on for a chat for a Manatee Monday that's happening on a Monday.
Half those demands came directly from me.
How are you, Mrs. D?
I'm good, Mr. D. How are you?
It's so bizarre. It's so wicked pissa bizarre. It's like I'm back at the Barnes & Noble Cafe. They're mesmerized by you. They're spellbound by you.
I have that effect on people.
Keep the eyes on the prize. And you know what? Some people have emailed me. Some people have emailed in response to that. Deb is the prize.
Oh.
I have unruly followers. What can I say?
In the comments, folks, so I can see it. I want to be told directly that I'm the prize.
I'm hoping people use other words. Keep you in line. I swear. But anyway.
I shut off my fan for you today, Steve. My fan, which is right behind me.
Oh.
In this direction, off camera.
I had the little AC unit. I put the little AC unit in the window when it was going to be 95 last week, just for one day. Because I don't want, I don't do it for myself. I do it because I don't want to look over and see Frieda just sitting there panting.
Right,
so
right.
I put it in there, and I thought I was going to use it today, but it's just fine. The fan on the floor is plenty. So we can both hear each other clearly.
Well, I don't have AC, so.
Yes. So those of you who are watching new, there are 300 of you or so who are here since the last time we did a Manatee Monday. This is when my old friend Deb and I meet over the backyard fence and just chat like two Donegal housewives. Where we have 3 categories. We do my aches and pains because we're both wicked pissa old. We do my stories where we look at the world and talk about what's on our mind. And then we do my books. And a tiny bit of apology. It looks like Deb's internet is having trouble buffering, so she's occasionally worse than she usually does.
I don't have the greatest connection.
No,
whether it's my computer or the actual connection, it's.
Well,
I have a very old computer.
The worst thing that could happen. Has happened a couple of times before where her connection just stalls completely. If that happens, then I don't know if we can try again, but we'll try and push through here. So why don't you kick things off?
We'll barrel through.
With your aches and pains.
My aches and pains.
We'll observe later.
My aches and pains this week are.
Until the Supreme Court officially rules you a second-class citizen, in which case it won't be ladies second, it'll be ladies never. I'll have we'll do Manatee Mondays then, and I'll just order you to be silent the whole time.
And I'll just sit here and look adoringly at my man, at my lord. So my aches and pains this week are not fickle. I have just had no focus this week at all. No attention span. I flit from thing to thing to thing.
What's the matter?
I don't know what. I don't know. I tried to watch 2 movies last night. I tried to watch Death on the Nile. And I got to the part where, in the beginning, where we discover why he grows his mustache. Have you seen Death on the Nile?
I have.
Yeah. At the beginning. And I'm like, wait a second. Can a man grow a mustache with that much scarring on his face? That big, luxurious, wonderful mustache when it's all like scar tissue underneath? That doesn't seem possible because like I have in my eyebrow a little place where I have a scar from being a little accident with swimming and like kids throwing stuff. I can't grow eyebrows there.
Well, but that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing.
Huh?
That's not the same thing. When men do it with a scar, they're not the hair's not coming up out of the scar.
But wouldn't there be a bald, like wouldn't it be like less filled in?
He explains that he's doing it to cover. to just
Right.
cover like a blanket.
Right, but the whole side of his face, like.
Well, I'm not
like
saying
what is he going
the
to
movie's
like
terrible.
here,
So
and
that is
over here?
technically what the answer
Like
is.
he just combs it all over here.
Right.
It just it didn't make sense to me.
That was
But anyway,
every time in American history that beards on men have made a comeback, that has usually been the reason. Because veterans came back and wanted to cover scars. The hair doesn't actually grow out of the scar. On your eye, that's why your eyebrow looks the way it does, because it's so sparsely haired. Well, not my eyebrows. My eyebrows are pretty bad, but usually it's so sparse.
But if assume I grew long hair on my eyebrow and half my eyebrow was scar tissue, the little remaining hair, it's like combing over a bald spot. Like it wouldn't look lush. And I know my brothers have little places that don't grow hair on their faces, and
how my aches and pains degenerated into a weird conversation about eyebrows. But nevertheless, if you did grew an eyebrow long and then combed the hair over the scar, it would fool people. People wouldn't see the scar. Anyway.
Okay, all right, I'll have to go with that.
Oh my.
But anyway, I made it a little past that, and then I was like, I don't really care about this movie, Wedding, which was a movie I liked back when I originally saw it, and I was getting into it, and then I had to get up and let the dog out, and I came back and I was like, yeah, I don't care. Like everything I started, I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
So what's the reason?
Oh, I do not know.
Have you taken a tight bond new lover? That's usually what does it with me.
Yeah, well,
no such luck.
No such luck. I don't know why I'm like scattered. I'm scattered. So if I'm scattered during this, it's because I'm scattered.
Yeah, it's affecting even your Wi-Fi.
Yes,
well,
yes.
My ache and pain is going to be familiar to a lot of people, but it's not familiar to me. I recently had a guest here, a fellow booktuber, David Murphy, came over for a few days, and we ordered food from the place next door. And because it was two of us and we were ordering a lot of food, when you order over a certain amount at that place, they give you a big liter bottle of soda free. And that means that there are a few bottles of soda here, and I hate waste. So I have been trying to polish off the root beer one. There's a liter bottle of root beer here.
Oh, you've been drinking it. Wow.
Well, I don't want to pour it down the drain, but good God, how do people, I know people who have a liter bottle of Coke or Pepsi every day. How do they do it? I mean, I feel like I'm sipping carburetor fluid. It's so gross. How do people do it? Do you do that? Do you have a constant supply of sugary soda? You do. See, I don't know how people do it. It makes you feel just awful. maybe I don't have the tolerance for it because I never do it.
Well, yeah, when you never do it and then you do it, you notice the difference.
I certainly don't want to go back. And God, the damage it must be doing to your teeth.
I'm sure it's rusting out my whole insides. Yeah, or it's just damaging me right and left.
Okay, well, the few viewers who are left now know the danger. Now they know the danger of asking two septuagenarians to talk about their aches and pains. The danger is we'll actually do it. Why don't we hurry on to my stories?
My stories.
What is your story this time around? Oh, did you freeze?
Well, my story is absolute fluff, and I know you think it's Oh, you didn't freeze.
Okay,
Can you hear me now?
We're back. We're fine.
Okay.
We'll just power through.
You're gonna hate my story. My stories. I have been watching the Johnny Depp trial.
I knew it. I knew that's what it was.
I have been focused,
so
laser focused on it.
You're obsessed with it.
And I have to say, I initially didn't care. I did not care. I'm not a fan of Johnny Depp. I'd never even heard of his wife. I've never seen, well, actually I have seen something she was in, but it was Zombieland. Apparently she had a minor part in it. But I've seen, I haven't seen Aquaman, didn't see the Rum Diaries, wouldn't recognize her name before this trial. I absolutely did not care. And then there was the poo on the bed. And when that turned up in my YouTube feed, I was like, what the hell?
You tell people what you're talking about? I guess you don't have to. Everybody in the world is fixated on this trial. But
if you don't know, she is accused of, after an argument, pooping in his bed. And then blaming her little 4-pound dogs for a human-sized poop.
That's the story that I've heard.
Anyway, so I had to check that out. And once I watched a video about that, I was like, oh, this seems like a shit show. I got to watch this. And I've been like laser focused on it. It's been.
So that's an area where you're not having any trouble focusing.
No, I guess because you don't have to pay that much attention to it. But I know that you think it's severe fluff, and it is in a sense.
I haven't paid any attention to it. I read a news article, the headline about the poo in the bed.
Yeah.
I read that. I remember I chuckled. Whenever I see anything anywhere in the world, I automatically think of the wisecrack I can make to you. And I read that, that after a particularly bad argument, she pooed in the bed. And the wisecrack that immediately came to mind is, Deb does that if she gives a book 4 stars and I give it 5. You don't even need a vicious argument. Although I have to confess, a little bit was a little touched as well, because I automatically remembered all the dogs I've had who got so old that they pooped in the bed without even knowing they were doing it. But that's not her case. She's not going to be put down next week.
No, although many people on the internet think she should be.
So is that your impression, that most people are siding with him?
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's because I am siding with him.
You are.
After having watched the trial, when initially, like, I remember when he got divorced, and there was, and I read something like just a little headline or whatever about, his ex-wife accused him, or domestic violence had been cited in the divorce. I was like, yeah, I could, that's probably true. He probably did. And after watching the trial, I'm like, no, she's a mess and a half.
Really?
And I feel she strains my sympathy. And I generally try to see both sides of an issue.
Somebody has to work really hard to strain your sympathy. Now I want to see this trial. If she can change your mind, that's pretty bad.
her days of testimony, and you know how easily I cry. The slightest, I don't know, the slightest hint of any sadness.
Never at any of our weddings, but always on the morning of the first night of the honeymoon. I noticed there were never any tears of joy at the wedding, but they did come up. It was just the next morning.
But when she was giving her testimony, it was just like so overblown and so like emotionally, like she was trying to produce emotion and it wasn't ringing true. And I had no.
What's your verdict then in terms of whether or not he's ever actually been abusive? Are you willing to absolve him of all of it now? Do you think she's just plain lying?
I think she's. Oh, she's definitely lying. She's got caught up in so many different lies.
All right, she's definitely lying. But is he innocent?
He's not completely innocent, no. I think, but I don't know to what extent he, like, I don't know where the line is drawn between him being aggressive and him being reactive.
Right. Okay.
And from what everybody seems to indicate, including audio tapes of her, when they fight, he goes into another room, like he runs away. And because he is not he just wants to get away from whatever is causing the stress. And that's his way of coping, is to run away. And that's, you know, and that fits in with like the drugs and, you know, like the drinking and the drugs and the, you know, trying to numb the emotion, whatever. And he's obviously messed up, like, you know, with the substance abuse.
The one of the trial that I've seen was him, and he seemed completely insane.
And I don't know if it's because he's a better actor or because he's actually coming from emotions.
Well, you make my story seem totally overblown now.
I don't know, but I think it's interesting, even though it's a celebrity thing and you can discount it. You can be like, what, they're both millionaires, who cares, you know, who cares if he was defamed or if she was defamed, or you know, they're away from each other, whatever the violence was between them, they're out of it now, so why do we have to watch this? But I think it brings up a lot of conversations, you know, about domestic violence in general, and what, you know, in the fact that not all victims act the same way. But and I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with her. Like, a lot of people are saying, like, she's telling these emotional stories and she's screwing up her face, like she's about to cry, or she's like sobbing. Her face is sobbing, but she's not producing any tears. I don't have a problem with that, because that might not be a thing for her. She might not cry that way, but just something doesn't feel right. And I think if you add that not feeling right with the fact that her own testimony contradicts previous testimony, and even within the same, like, there's one point where she, where with Johnny Depp's lawyer is talking about her posting photographs to his friends of him passed out, and in kind of a humiliating pose or situation. And Johnny Depp's lawyer says, well, weren't you afraid posting those pictures to all your friends that he'd find out? And she says, why would I be? Just like, why would you be? If he's beating the shit out of you for, you know, looking at him funny, I think you'd probably be afraid. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't ring right. It just doesn't ring right with me. So.
Remember how steamed I was when you sent pictures of me and David Niven to the Hollywood Reporter?
I didn't do that.
Oh!
Yeah, sure. I took the picture. It was on my phone. I don't know how it got to the Hollywood Reporter.
Well, my own story is national news.
Okay.
And it's pointless. It's not fluff. It's not entertaining. It's this Georgia investigation into Donald Trump that has just announced a whole new round of subpoenas to witnesses. The Georgia prosecutor wants to bring him to trial on a case of tampering with an election. It feels really dumb, because we all heard the recording of the phone call in which he did.
I didn't make that recording. I didn't tamper with those. I didn't tamper with that.
There's no need for witnesses. He's guilty on the face of it. And the speculation has been, you know, people have on commentary circles have said, it's really bad that we're leaving this to Georgia. Why isn't there a federal prosecution? And a lot of people have responded that probably the reason there isn't a federal prosecution is because people are aware that he issued a pardon to himself before he left office. Well, he hasn't made that clear. He hasn't made it clear that he issued pardons to his children or to Rudy Giuliani or to himself. It's also not clear that a president can pardon himself. But they're called sort of pocket pardons. And the speculation is the reason there's no federal prosecutor is because he has one. Why waste the energy? Whereas he can't pardon himself for state crimes.
Huh.
And so there's the speculation now with this new round of subpoenas is that of all the things, this could be the thing that lands him in a court, and that maybe lands him with a guilty verdict. I mean, he is self-evidently guilty. Everybody in the world heard that phone call with Brad Raffensperger. there's no other way to interpret it other than manufacture votes for me. That's election fraud. But
there is a parallel between our two stories here. There really is. And it's who you're going to believe, me or your lying eyes.
right. Right. I hadn't thought of your point about her posting embarrassing pictures of him. That is not something that a wife afraid of abuse would do.
And she bought him a big ass knife. A big ass knife. And she said, oh, I wasn't afraid he was going to stab me. It's like,
so, all right. So getting back to your story, since mine is not going to go anywhere, it's not going to work. It's not going to bring any accountability to Donald Trump. But getting back to your story, just one final point. How do you predict it will come out? What do you think the verdict will be?
I don't know. Oh, my second point about why I think it's important, why this trial is important, is because it's got a lot of eyes watching courts, watching a court, watching how things go in a court. And I'm watching like people commenting saying, why do they have 9 jurors when only 7 get to cast a vote? And why?
But
and it's just, and some of those people are probably not US citizens, granted.
Don't you think that it ultimately, I mean, it sounds like you're saying that he's going to be acquitted.
No.
And if that happens, won't it set back women accusing men of domestic violence 100 years?
No, it's a defamation trial because she wrote an article in the Washington
Post. This is a trial about domestic violence. It doesn't matter what the technicality of the charge is. This is about whether or not she's lying about him being violent to her.
He is the claimant. He is suing her.
But what, did you suddenly become Perry Mason? It doesn't matter. Those details don't matter. If he is acquitted, everyone in the world is going to say the woman accused him and she was lying.
Yes.
Won't that be bad? Won't that be a really bad thing?
Well, frankly, believing every single woman every single time and not relying on evidence and not relying on individuals I don't think it's a good idea, because women are not one solid unit.
You are so canceled.
Cancel me, baby. I don't care.
You have heard the slogans. They are commands from Twitter. The slogan is "Believe all women."
I think you need to take women seriously, obviously, and you need to take the charges seriously when they're made, but some of those aren't going to be true.
You're supposed to believe all women. That's the slogan. If you don't do it, they'll cancel your woman's card. Although,
I'm almost canceled anyway, frankly.
You probably want your woman's card canceled.
Steve, according to Republicans, I have no more use in the world since I can no longer bear a child.
Right.
So cancel my womanhood.
That's going to be a story when that opinion actually comes down, as opposed to a leaked draft.
It's not a clear-cut issue. And that's part of its importance is
okay. I've heard commentators say that her coming off as an obviously untrustworthy villain will have a so-called chilling effect.
I'm sure it will, and that's unfortunate. But we should hold her responsible for that as an individual and not look to women in general.
Okay, all this crazy talk about women being individuals has given me the heebie-jeebies. So let's just move on to books. Let's move on to our books. I should make a parenthetical explanation for those. There are 300 people who are watching my channel who weren't watching, didn't know it existed when we did our last Manatee Monday. I should probably explain just parenthetically to those 300 people that Deb and I have known each other since the late Pliocene era, and this is how we have fun, is to viciously attack each other.
Yes. But no, my point being that this might be a lot of Americans' first view of the judicial system and how courts operate, because don't in most states, don't people do whatever they need to do to get out of jury duty?
Yeah.
And we're lucky. Like I've served on 3 juries
Me too.
here in Massachusetts, two criminal and 1 civil, and because you can't get out of it easily in Massachusetts, it's very difficult to do so. And I'm just fascinated by the way the law works. And that's why I don't know what the outcome of this trial is going to be. Because first of all, you have the jury, like, who do they believe? You don't know. But also add on top of that, the fact that defamation is a hard thing to prove.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, I've served on 3 juries and I've been called twice, 2 other times. I've
been called a couple of other times as well. Where
I got my summons and I called the number for the courthouse. The woman, she sounded very bored, and I said, I need to postpone the date. And she said, okay, hon, what's your reason? And I said, I just got a new puppy. And she interrupted me and said, oh, hon, say no more. Let's postpone this until summer, you poor thing. And that was her. That was the bean. And the other time I didn't survive voir dire. I went up to the judge and said, I cannot possibly be objective in this case. So
see, the 2 times I wasn't chosen, one, it just never got around to calling my set of numbers into the courtrooms. And the other time they did not have enough of a jury. It was in the small little court near my house. They didn't have enough after they kicked everyone out for not passing voir dire. They didn't have enough jurors to try the case in front of.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm sure it would have been picked for that one too.
The courthouse people that I know always say, there are prosecutors all over this building, right at every minute of every day, threatening people, saying, there's a jury right down the hall that'll hear this right now, when there isn't one. And those threats usually work, so people don't opt for a jury trial.
Right.
So you get dismissed.
Right. And they always tell you that's yeah. Whether you get picked or not, you did your civic duty, because.
And as usual, that little card you get, the card that tells you when you served or when you appeared, as usual, I've lost it. So I know that I'm going to get oh no, see? Oh no, Zoom is telling us that we are out of time, and we have
books. Okay, well, I have read nothing.
We have 9 minutes and 50 seconds.
So you do your book thing, because I've read nothing.
You've read nothing?
No.
No paying attention.
Focused on your
scattered
in life, but focused.
I read this thing, Philosophy for Passengers.
Okay.
Which is a travel book like I have never read before. It has nothing to do with destinations. It's not a canned description of Barcelona. It's what it's like to wait for a train, what it's like to travel for a long distance on a train, what it's like to read when you're on a plane or in an airport or something like that.
Wow.
Really, really liked it. I wasn't expecting that I would, but I really enjoyed it.
You are old.
It's new. It's brand new. This is
nice.
This is the kind of travel, 2022. Yeah, this is the kind of travel that we all know. And I loved it. I have not read a travel book like it. So that's book number 1. Then book number 2 is not a recommendation. This is coming out in July. This is Leadership by Henry Kissinger, in which he does 6 profiles of leaders. And when you step back from the profiles, you realize that the things he's praising them for are horrible. It's like a totally skewed worldview. When is this guy going to die? When is he going to die? He's like 200 years old.
I was just thinking, how is he still alive?
Still alive, and not only that, but he's still compos mentis, and this is an objectively evil book. It's like the virus of Nixonian politics just won't go away.
Well, when you feed off the blood of children.
And then the last books, I have them here, they're props, but they're huge. This thing.
Oh, what is that? Oh.
Princeton University Press, The Complete Poetry of W.H. Auden, with new introductions by Edward Mendelsohn, who's a great Auden scholar. These are amazing. They're just amazingly good. I don't know it's going to be pretty hard to justify keeping them because they're so huge and
Oh,
so
they're beautiful though.
they are beautiful. And I got digital copies months ago, but boy, experiencing these great big books physically really was a treat. Just so there you go. Those are 3 books for our deadline. Oh, the bean is yawning.
Aw, she is a sweetie.
So
I'm about to decide on my summer reading because I will be splitting off to Maine.
You'll be going to Maine, where we have to work on your Wi-Fi so that Manatee Mondays can continue.
I'll be lying on the sun on a glider, a big, heavy metal glider, like from the 40s or the 50s, like this rock of a glider, and reading.
Well, surely one thing that you read in June will be a Western, right? There's a BookTube event, June on the Range.
I heard you guys talking about that in your stream last night.
Surely one of your brothers, surely somebody in your family likes Westerns.
You know, my dad had a Zane Grey from when he was a child.
Was it Rider to the Purple Sage?
No, I don't know what it was. It was one I hadn't heard of. But maybe
I bet you can. And we've got 6 minutes left. What's the book? I think I asked you this via email, but maybe for the audience here, you're going up to Maine. Those of you who are not from America, Maine is way up in the north and stuck up thumb of the country.
But the part I live in is southern Maine, so it's only 2.5 hours from here.
Okay. What's the books situation like there? Any bookstores?
They have recently opened. I live in a town right outside of Portland, but the town I live in, they have recently opened a bookstore, which is the first bookstore they've had like in 20 or 30 years. And it's very lovely. It's called Spencer's, no, Sherman's. It's called Sherman's.
Okay.
It's a little Maine chain. It's lovely. It's
accessible. Is it accessible?
Yeah. It's small. You know, it's not like a giant, like Barnes and Noble.
Well, by the time you get there, our store is gone.
Yeah.
That store's closing.
That's true. It's heartbreaking.
Well, we have a lot of negative memories from that store, but a lot of positive. That's the last time you and I ever.
It's heartbreaking for a few employees that are still there that we know.
Yes, and also for Boston, which will no longer have a gigantic sprawl.
Well, they're putting in a Harvard bookstore there.
That's what I've heard, but I don't believe it. Why would anybody put a bookstore there? There's no interest. If there were interest, I mean, if the Harvard bookstore goes in there, they would have to cut the space. They would have to carve up the space.
It would have to be, it would have to be renovated and made to be a little different. Yeah.
So this Sherman's, did you call it?
Sherman's.
Is it accessible from where you're going to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's about a mile away from where I am.
So if you got an idea in your head that there was a book that you wanted to read, all you would have to do is get permission from the nearest man to go to the bookstore.
Yes.
Oh
yes,
no!
If I'm allowed out of the house.
He'd have to take you there with me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, he could wait in the car. He doesn't have to be seen with me.
We can watch the news develop. We can watch the news develop. I don't understand why the women in America are not completely united on this issue. No matter where you stand on the subject of abortion, this is the court declaring you a second-class citizen. So when this opinion actually is published, when the Supreme Court actually does this instead of a leaked opinion, I don't understand why every woman in the country at any position anywhere simply goes on strike. Like in Aristophanes' play, Lysistrata, where the women go on strike in order to stop a war. If every woman in the country, the morning after that decision comes down, decided, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to talk to any of the men in my life, I'm not going to go to work, the country would come to a halt almost immediately. And I don't know what would happen after that. We foolishly gave these people the right to make unmeditated decisions. I don't know what you can do with that, other than for the court to rescind its rescension.
Well, because that is the ultimate goal, is to take away the rights of reproduction completely.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well, I don't know, it'll never happen, but there was a local politician who went even further. I mean, local politicians in the South have said, once this happens, not only will we put in unbelievably barbaric restrictive laws, but we'll also put in a law making it a crime for a woman to leave the state to have an abortion. But since you don't know what's going on in her head, what you're going to do is make it a crime for her to leave the state, period. Why Americans are not up in arms about that, I do not know. But one local politician, I think it was in Tennessee, suggested also a law that would make masturbation illegal. Because the sin of Onan, you're spilling seed that could otherwise be millions and millions of obedient white Christians. And, it's a classic example of the sexism of this country, that a bill to outlaw masturbation would be annihilated. No, it would never get anywhere. But a bill to make women second-class citizens who need their men's permission for a life-saving operation, that's okay. We can do that. But you and a magazine in the privacy of your own room? No, you go right ahead. Oh, but
what was Ted Cruz did something, tried to ban something in Texas.
Yeah, they're all about banning everything except military guns.
Yeah. Oh, that's a conversation for another day.
But Mrs. D, we can't have a Manatee Monday that starts with eyebrow hair and ends with masturbation. We can't do that. BookTube will kick us off. Can't we find how's your dog? How's your little dog?
He's fine. He's a good.
Say something about him and don't make it about his weenie. I can't take you anywhere. Quick, we only have a few seconds left.
I'm on the spot. I'm on the spot.
Is he adorable?
Adorable. He's getting a little bit shaggy though. He needs to be groomed again.
But he's adorable.
He's always adorable. He's a sweet little pooch.
There you go.
And he just recently in May celebrated his gotcha day when I got him from the shelter.
Okay, and just for the YouTube censors out there, she said sweet little pooch, not sweet little poo. Okay.
What did I?
You said it right. I want to go on record saying that because this has been a disaster. A disaster.